Hi everyone, what's up and welcome back to my channel. If you're new here, I'm Nikita Tanwani, former Femina Miss India state winner and now a pageant coach. If you like my content and feel that my content has helped you win your pageant and perform better, then please consider supporting the channel by hitting the subscribe button down below. Now let's get started. In today's episode, I'm going to be sharing my detailed review of the question and answer round for the top 7 contestants at Femina Miss India 2024. Stick till the end of the video to know my overall review of what the finale show is like and suggestions that I would have for the pageant in coming years. Before I begin, I do want you to be aware of the fact that at Femina Miss India, since the last 6 years, to my knowledge, the top 7 contestants are aware of either the questions or pretty much the topics that the questions will be based on. So the onstage question is not entirely unexpected, and so the contestants do get a chance to have prepared a little bit before the final night and be prepared for possible questions. And that's what I teach inside Impact and Inspire. When you have a list of topics, how do you prepare for any possible question under that topic? If you want to check out more about my course, then click the link in the description box below, and also join my free private community on Telegram, where one of the members is the reason this video is finally happening. For the top 7 contestants, the first question went to Maharashtra Arshia Rashid, and the question for Arshia was, social media places undue pressure on beauty standards. What message would you like to share with the young generation of today? Arshia's answer centered around the pros and cons of social media. She said that social media, while it allows us to voice our opinions and gives us all a platform, at the same time, social media has also enabled strangers to comment on our appearance and our body type. And the message that she would like to share with the generation of today is that they seek so much validation in those comments and the number of likes, and they need to detach from the numbers visible on social media and focus on the things that really matter. This answer is a classic example of focusing on the wrong part of the question. If you look back at the question is talking about how social media has led to all of these unachievable beauty standards, and that's what's impacting the generation of today. And so the message that as a judge I would be looking for is how today's generation cannot be impacted by so much of what they see on social media, and not about them engaging in likes and comments. It was a little away from what the question was really looking for. So the topic was beauty standards and not social media. In fact, I felt that talking about the pros and cons of social media was entirely irrelevant to the question in the first place. And further, Arshia could have also personalized this. She could have talked about her own experience on social media. If I had to answer that question, I would have probably gone ahead with social media definitely creates an unattainable standard of beauty because of what we see as highly edited pictures. But as a content creator myself, and as a responsible woman who understands that her audience is primarily young women, I make it a point to not Photoshop my pictures or to not overly Facetune my images to make some other young girl who's following me and looking up to me feel less about herself. And as your next Femina Miss India 2024, I would make sure that the image that social media is portraying for young girls and boys is changing, and that we are all working towards using social media to promote acceptance than comparison. The next question was for Madhya Pradesh, Nikita Porwal, who also ended up winning the competition. The question was, in India, every 7 minutes, one woman is dying of cervical cancer. How would you, as Femina Miss India 2024, inspire women across India to prioritize their health and raise awareness about cervical cancer prevention? This is a classic example of the questions which kind of do so much of the answering for you within the question itself. So the challenge for a contestant now is that if you were to have a generic answer which kind of revolved around the same things that the question is saying, you end up not answering the question at all. And so you have to make sure that there are actionable items within your answer so that it actually becomes an answer that you added something to, rather than just repeating what the judge said, which actually happens a lot. Nikita started off very well, and she inserted this sentence which instantly shows the judges and the audience that she understands how to represent the country and really do a deep qualitative analysis of what the problem is and where is the problem originating from. She says that I believe we are a country which believes in God's plan versus our plan, and we tend to give privilege to God's plan. The choice of words here was extremely beautiful, and I think that's definitely adding to the impact of her answer. She then goes on to elaborate that whenever cancer happens to anybody here, we believe that it's our destiny, but she believes that prevention is better than cure. Now, I did notice that there seemed like there was no time limit at Femina Miss India this year, and so some of the answers did go over 30 seconds for sure. And so if she was to say the same kind of answer at Miss World, I feel like the buzzer would have went off. And so she needs to learn how to summarize. But let's see what are some good winning aspects of her answer. Had the judges' attentions right off the bat when she started. I felt like with the elaboration, she was kind of losing it a little bit, but then very quickly she comes back and then she gives you some very actionable items. She did have some good elements in that answer, but I was also looking for keywords such as taboo or stigma, and those would have been able to summarize what she was trying to say in lesser words. And so something that Nikita has to work on right now is her articulation toolkit. Fun fact, Nikita Porwal is actually a student of the Impact and Inspire program as well, and she did purchase the course 1 month before her pageant, and that is why I can see some elements of the strategies and framework I share inside. But again, within 1 month, I can also see the gaps and the lack of practice. And so what we did lack was one-on-one coaching sessions. When I watched the entire top 7 Q&A, I will say that her answer was one of the most effortless and candid speaking skills. And this is something that was lacking in a lot of other answers that I will discuss, which sounded extremely rehearsed. And so the delivery is equally important. How you say what you say is so important these days. And when you're competing internationally, the rehearsed delivery just doesn't work these days. If you observe pageants across the world in 2024, the most winning answers are the ones that sounded the most authentic and relatable. If I was to work on the exact same question, which I did because I said they were shared beforehand with the contestants, unfortunately, cervical cancer in some cultures is perceived to be a cancer of sexually promiscuous people. I believe this causes a great amount of stigma and shame. And firstly, we need to remove the stigma that creates the shame for the equation, and so that we can start talking more about women's reproductive health and their rights and educate others as well as ourselves. Because I believe that prevention is better than cure, I would encourage young women to get the HPV vaccine, because that is something that I wish Nikita Porwal had talked about. One of the most common preventative methods of cervical cancer is the HPV vaccine, and I don't know how that did not come up in the conversation. Regardless, she ended up winning, and that has a lot to do with also what were the other answers like. So let's get into those. The next contestant was Goa Shruti Raul, and her question was, what according to you is the most important issue that women in India are facing today? Shruti talked about the lack of women's safety in India. I absolutely agree with her, and I've talked about this, that even last year in 2023 also there was a similar question, and I remember a contestant choosing to talk about that. I've reviewed that on my channel already. I wish Shruti had seen that video, because then she would know that while it's a good topic to talk about, it's also a really tricky topic. And here's what happened. The way she talked about the lack of women's safety in India does not portray the country in a good light. And as an organization, I can simply not make you the country's representative. It's one thing to, of course, be honest and do that, but at the same time, were you able to do balancing of the answer? Were you able to do the damage control? Because in the end, you are going to be a spokesperson for Miss India and represent India. You have to have the maturity to realize what to say, what not to say, and if you're going to address something, how do you talk about it? She addressed the problem and elaborated on it, but she didn't really talk about what is she going to do about it. The next contestant was Miss India Delhi, Sifti Sarang, also one of my personal favorites. Her question was, should a man who has undergone gender change be allowed to compete in the women's category of any sport? Sifti very courageously eventually got to the point. So her answer started by talking about how inclusivity is a major force in today's world, But she said sports is beyond that, and fairness is the most important thing in sports. I'm not really sure why she has this school of thought. And then there was a little bit of hesitation, but she did manage to eventually say what her actual opinion is, which she said that I suggest that there be a third group for transgender athletes, and that way we can include them and also maintain and establish fairness in the sports competitions. I completely agree with her answer, but I do wish that she hasn't hesitated, because that is something that reflects and judges audience. Even I, as an online viewer, was able to pick that up, that she wasn't necessarily sure if that opinion of hers would be received very well, which I understand, but to not let the people in that room find out that you're hesitating, that's what makes a title holder. The next contestant who came up is Miss India Gujarat Ayushi Dhalokia, and her question was, what according to you are pros and cons of artificial intelligence today and its impact on our future? Ayushi Dhalokia's answer was really, really long. In fact, a little too long, and I don't think it would work at any international platform, is because she answered the question in the same sequence. This question, when you have a limited time frame to answer questions, certain questions require you to reverse the sequence of the questions asked, which means that first you have to talk about the impact of AI on our future and then talk about the pros and cons. I will say she had all the right keywords. She had a textbook perfect answer. She started by saying, as a young and educated youth, I think of AI as the next breakthrough in technology, and I'm always supporting that. She talks about the pros, but also recognizes the cons, such as privacy concerns, job displacement, and ethical dilemma. And the way she delivered that, I also wrote super rehearsed. It just felt like it was memorized as an answer, and that's just the feeling that I got. It just did not feel like this was a spontaneous question. One of the best answers, if you look at the content, I do wish that even if you've practiced and you're that prepared as a contestant, do try to make it sound like you're making sense and it's coming in the moment to you. For instance, me filming this YouTube video right now, of course I have my notes here, but I wouldn't want to sound so scripted and rehearsed that it takes away the authenticity of the video, right? She also ended with the servant master analogy, which is one of my favorite analogies when it comes to AI. So that was perfect, but you see how assist, replace, servant master, pros and cons. It was more like an essay on AI. And so that's something I feel as a contestant she could work on. The next contestant was Meghalaya Angelina. Her question was about the Tata group of companies, and the question was, what do you think differentiates the Tata group of companies from other successful companies? I was a little disappointed to see that Angelina struggled so much with answering this question, just because it wasn't unexpected. And then she also seemed to be struggling with the mic and the height of the mic. Here's the thing, a lot of the times, yes, pageant contestants have different heights and the mic cannot be changed every single time. I felt that Angelina could have just even called someone for help if she really needed the mic to be adjusted. But if it's a standing mic, usually I would suggest my clients to not touch it, right? Because I went back to see if the mic height had changed when Angelina came, but even Sifty was around the same height as Angelina. She didn't seem to be struggling with the mic at all. So I think just let it be. Start talking, don't touch the mic, and if you're not audible, they will tell you. Her answer also did not personally make sense. So when I made notes, I said that it felt like she said the same thing twice, that other companies give back to the community and so does Tata companies. At the end of her answer, I felt like there was not a single difference that was pointed out in the Tata group of companies versus the others. And so there wasn't a lot to talk about. Some notes that I had written are for the same question. Ratan Tata embodies values showing that true leadership isn't just about building companies, it's about building communities. And in fact, when I was working with one of the clients that was competing at the pageant, we also personalized the answer. So in this case, let's say you have a venture of your own or you have your own advocacy project. You could even talk about how you are a leadership in your own personal life and how those leadership values resonate with the Tata company values. And I felt like Meghalaya missed the opportunity in so many ways. And the last contestant was Union Territories Rekha Pandey. And her question was, interestingly, a question that has been asked before at Femina Miss India. And the question was, what is the difference between spirituality and religion? And what path do you follow in your personal life? Rekha had a decent start to her answer, but the hesitation was also evident. She talked about how spirituality is about being one with the universe, but religion is what gives structure to all of that. I do suggest that instead, when you have to compare two things, it's always a good idea to use balancing statements. What that means is something like spirituality teaches us that God is within us, while religion teaches us that God is outside of us. Or she could have said that religion is based on fear and restriction, whereas spirituality is based on love and freedom. And something like that makes it very easy for the audience to really understand what the difference between spirituality and religion is. And then you dive into how do you adopt that approach in your personal life. I will say that hats off to Rekha for thinking on her feet, because it felt very spontaneous, and so the delivery was nice. She was very smart that as the potential title holder, she did conclude her answer by saying that both can coexist if we understand our differences, and each one of us understands that if they come together, we can achieve self-belief, self-discovery, and peace. So that was nice. I do like the ending, that she understood that as a title holder, she can't just answer the question, but she also has to take it in a direction which makes it about her and her as a potential title holder in the future, and what kind of message she would like to share as the next Femina Miss India. So that's something that I really appreciate, and I felt that it wasn't there in the case of Ayushi's answer either. Even though it was super long and almost textbook perfect, I did feel like, what are you going to do as the next Femina Miss India? And there was no personalization really. It just felt like a really big article on artificial intelligence. And with Sifty as well, the reason it wasn't convincing was because I don't really know why she cares about fairness so much. Now, as promised, I do want to talk about how I feel about this overall top 7 review, that I'm not entirely sure whether I've reviewed the actual performance of the top 7 contestants, or have I reviewed what the live telecast showed us. Because I've been in the pageant, I've experienced this myself, and I've also been hearing so many opinions about people who attended the finale live, who had tickets to the show. And what we've been hearing is that the live telecast show is not an entirely transparent reflection of what happened inside the venue that night. A lot of the answers, it seems, have been edited and are not exactly what was delivered. I've also heard that some of the contestants got more than one chance to attempt the onstage question, which I cannot wrap my head around, because how is that a contest at all? You might as well just ask people to submit videos, because then I can have multiple takes, I can edit, rehearse, practice. And that's probably why if someone gets 3 chances to answer a question, which I've heard happened, then I can probably understand why some of the answers sounded so rehearsed. And so I hope that the organization does a live telecast of the show in the coming years, because not just is it going to help with the overall transparency and help us build trust with the brand, which seems to be lacking right now, but it is so important for Femina Miss India to do that, because FMI is synonymous with pageantry in India. Every young girl out there who is aware of pageantry wants to become a Miss India, and that word resonates with everybody so much. That brand name is a part of so many households that I think it's imperative for the organization to work towards rebuilding that trust factor, so that both contestants, viewers, coaches, and anyone who's aspiring to be a part of the organization really knows what to expect and can also really enjoy the show, and so that I can review actual answers mostly. And so I hope that that changes. And I know I've been watching the comments online. All of us have been asking for a live stream of the Femina Miss India show. So if that's something that you also want to support, I would love for you to drop in your opinions and thoughts, and also what is your biggest takeaway from today's review of the top 7 Q&A. If you found this video helpful, informative, it helps you prepare for your next pageant, and inspirational, then do consider hitting the thumbs up down below and also supporting the channel by subscribing to it. With that being said, I love you guys so much, and I will see you very soon in my next video. Bye!